Hello and welcome to Recharge Wrestling. We are here to plug you in to the world of professional wrestling. I'm Keeney and I'm joined by Fisher today.
Hello, guys. No Krusty today. Unfortunately, he's busy, but we really wanted to get a pod out for the Royal Rumble. Don't know whether you can see me or not because I'm having camera issues again. There's a still image of me on the screen frozen. I don't know if that's going to come up or it's just not going to be me, but just be Keeney. But
yeah, let's hope so. Then don't have to focus on me too much. But as Fisher mentioned there, we're going to run through the Royal Rumble from Saturday night. And just go through top to bottom of the card, give our thoughts, and like I say, probably a bit of mania chat in there as well.
Absolutely.
As we go through. But the start of the show, I mean, probably a surprise that we kicked off with the men's Royal Rumble as the first match.
Yeah, and I do think that kind of not gave away the winner, but made it a bit more maybe obvious.
Yeah, I mean, it was fairly obvious anyway. There wasn't anyone else built up to win.
No.
I mean, well, actually, let's just say before the match even started, we had Pat McAfee come down.
Oh yeah, that was a nice surprise. That was probably the biggest surprise of the Rumble, to be honest.
Yeah, lovely. And I mean, I hope that's him back full time. I don't know whether this was just a one-off for the Rumble or what this, whether Wade Barrett continues on SmackDown or, whatever they do. Because I think they've moved away from the three-man booths. So there would need to be some reshuffling if Pat is back full time.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see where they go.
Yeah, and if he is, it makes sense to put him with Cole, given their chemistry.
Oh yeah, they have their chemistry is unmatched at the moment. So I'd say that would be a no-brainer if he's back full time. But I don't know what the deal is. They've not heard anything since. So
no. And then the Rumble itself. I mean, if you haven't already listened, go and check out Fisher's where he did his version of the Rumble on YouTube, because it's interesting to see the differences, and there are probably some things you got right, Fisher. Some things
mine wasn't a predicted Rumble in terms of like.
Or how would? Oh, sorry, yeah. How would
mine was more was like how I would. It was like a fantasy booking, really. So, the similarity that we did have was we started off with a number one and number two who have like history to sort of go on. Because I predicted there would be. Oh, well, my thing, I had Seth and Cody as 1 and 2, but here we had Gunther and Sheamus as 1 and 2, which was equally as cool. Really good start to the Rumble, I thought. We won't go through all 30 entrances, obviously, but we'll get to anybody of note, I think.
I think we should definitely pick out a few people, and one definitely worth picking out is Gunther, who...
Yeah, absolutely.
I was surprised to be number one. I really thought he'd be like in the final 5 entrants, probably final 10 at least. I really thought he'd be kept towards the end, but what a showing from Gunther here, breaking the record for time in
that's the first
Rumble.
Thing to sort of say, yeah.
And just complete, just unbelievable. I'm so happy that he is getting this spotlight and being pushed the way he's being pushed. He just looks dominant, and he lasted to the final 2. And we'll get to it kind of a bit later on, but the last 2 competitors lasted a fair while.
Yeah, they had basically a one-on-one match at the end, which was cool.
Yeah, and I wonder whether, in hindsight, whether that was actually to try and make sure Gunther did get the record. They just kept him going for a while. Towards the end. But yeah, brilliant. Like I say, Sheamus coming out. Number 2, like I say, to be honest, this wasn't a Rumble with too many shocks. Most of the participants, actually all of the participants, are contracted WWE.
Yeah, there wasn't any real massive surprises in there, which I've seen people criticize, and that's fair enough. I do think they could have done with 1 or 2 surprises. But what I will say, and the best, I've watched another review earlier actually, and the best sort of booking, the way of booking this Rumble, and I agree with it completely, was it was competent. It everything made sense. All the storylines that were involved, apart from one thing I think that didn't make sense. We'll get to that. But the Lashley Lesnar stuff, the winner, everything that we thought was going to happen was there. There was no stuff just for the sake of it, really, which is good. But I think the only thing missing was maybe we could have had a couple less main roster stars on there and had either some NXT people or legends just to mix it up a little bit and get some, fresh faces in there. But other than that, I thought it was really, and the same with the women's, although women's had a couple more big surprises. But the men's in particular didn't have too much. But I just thought it was a really well booked match overall. And talking of Gunther, while we're on the subject, not only did he last the whole match, but he was so impressive in like the moves that he took. His back was like bleeding. He was covered.
He took a
stuff.
lot.
Yeah. It wasn't like, because Liv Morgan lasted the whole match in a women's match, but you barely saw her for like half of it. Whereas here, you saw Gunther constantly in this match, and he had showdowns with Lesnar, Sheamus, Drew. Obviously, he eliminated Sheamus and Drew at the same time. Other big guys as well that you kind of want to see him against. So I thought it was an incredible showing for him. The only slight criticism I have of him being in the last two is the fact it wasn't going to win because he's the Intercontinental Champion, and I mentioned to you when we were watching it.
Yeah,
I thought that's the only reason I wouldn't have had him in the last two, because you're not going to have the mid-card champion challenge for Roman at WrestleMania. But other than that, perfect.
Yeah, I think a lot of that though is down to WWE's lack of building anyone else up than Cody. Like, they could have had Gunther come out on SmackDown and say, if I win the Rumble, I'm gonna, give up my IC title. I'm willing to give it up to be champ. But like, there could have been stuff like that. And then also you think, okay, Gunther's a contender now, and then Brock and Lashley say stuff, but no one other than like The Miz, I think, said something on SmackDown about winning it, which is obviously not.
Yeah, obviously MVP said that Amos was going to win, but we knew that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, but I just think they didn't build anyone else up, anyone else credible.
No, I think the only thing they could have done is maybe had Cody and Rollins, because obviously there's history between them, and Rollins winning's believable.
Yeah, so, it is. Yeah,
like without even having to say anything. But that's me nitpicking, really.
Yeah, but this was a Rumble where we had a lot of big guys early on. So Brock came out number 12.
Yeah, and Lashley 13 straight after.
Yeah, and both of them lasting not long at all. I think Brock was in there for about 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, Lashley did last 7 minutes.
Yeah,
but Brock got 3 eliminations in that time. Lashley only got 1, which was obviously Lesnar. So
yeah.
And then Lashley was eliminated actually by Seth Rollins. So Rollins got a big elimination there.
Yeah.
He had the spot with Corbin on the outside. He came in after Lesnar and Lashley, waited on the outside because he didn't want to face them. And then Lesnar destroyed him. So that was interesting. We had early on in the Rumbles as well. So we had Drew at number 9. He lasted a long time, obviously tagging a lot with Sheamus. We had both members of the New Day in quite early, and they had their like fun spots. Kofi, obviously, we've got to talk about the botch elimination.
Second year in a row.
Unfortunate. I don't necessarily think it was Kofi's fault, but he did get launched off that rope, and I think the chair was in the wrong place. I don't know because Woods had just been eliminated, hadn't he? I don't know if Woods was supposed to set the chair up. Cody was supposed to fall into the chair, and I don't know if the chair was misplaced or he was thrown out too hard. One of those two things happened, I think.
I think it's potentially both. I think Woods didn't set the chair up properly, and I think he was just thrown too hard to the point where it was impossible to get a grip and stay standing. Although we have seen that spot before of landing on the chair and then being wheeled back to the ring. I'm sure Kofi's done that with Xavier Woods holding the chair before.
Maybe something similar, yeah.
I mean, who knows what they had planned? Maybe there's something else other than that planned. But yeah, it wasn't a particularly unique spot. And I think I genuinely think now is the time to just give up on these spots now. I just think
or give them to someone else, and if they've got any new ideas.
But like, yeah, it has to be something really spectacular now, because we've seen it from John Morrison, and I think we mentioned Casey Catanzaro, I think did one last year in the women. So like, it's and obviously Kofi's done it multiple times, 5, 6, 7 times in the past. So it's not new. And like, actually,
Naomi's done a few as well.
Yeah, I was just thinking she walked on her hands one year.
Yeah.
So it has to be something spectacular. And to me, being thrown onto a chair and it isn't that spectacular. But
no, I would rather have seen them do an easier spot that was more funny. Like we mentioned Johnny Gargano perhaps getting saved by Dexter Lumis coming out of the ring or something like that, like they did with Otis and Mandy that time. That would have been okay, like something like that, because that's easy to do. and it won't, it's not going to go wrong. But we didn't get that. Johnny Gargano did last quite a long time. He had a decent showing in the Rumble, I would
Yeah,
say.
he did, especially when Brock came in and cleared the ring. He cleared all of the small guys, or smaller guys.
Yeah. He was left
and
in the ring at one point with like
Gargano
Lesnar,
stayed.
Lashley, Drew, Sheamus, and like someone else big. I think it was Seth actually. So it was a good showing for Johnny from that respect. Then that was sort of the first half of the Rumble, really.
Then we didn't get Rey Mysterio. So actually only 29.
So this was the thing I was saying. The only logic
Rumble.
hole where they kind of didn't do anything was this. So I thought they either would explain why Rey wasn't in it in terms of like he got attacked backstage by Judgment Day or Dominic or Karrion Kross, or they would have someone come out at the end after all 30 people and be like, hang on, there's an extra entrant because Rey didn't enter. That's what we were kind of expecting, weren't we, when we were watching it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously the implication is Dominic attacked him because he come out with his mask, and that does make sense. It's just weird to not show anything like that was odd. You could just easily have had shown a clip backstage of Rey led under some pipes or whatever with no mask covering his face, and then Dominic walking off with the mask. And
so apparently the reason behind this angle was done was because Rey actually got injured on SmackDown in the match against Karrion Kross on the Friday.
Okay.
So he wasn't actually even there, apparently. So that's why they didn't do anything. But I still think they should have done a replacement. Maybe. I don't think putting Sami Zayn in the Rumble would have been a good idea because I think they would have hijacked the crowd, would have hijacked it. But I think you could have made Roman get Solo enter the Rumble or something like that. Right at the end, comes in number 31 to replace Rey. But yeah, they didn't do anything. And I did think that was one little misstep in this Rumble. Or you could have got a legend to fill it or an NXT call up or something like that, just to add an extra surprise element to it. But that was my only criticism in this whole Rumble.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair enough. This then kind of led to a bit of Judgment Day domination for a period where Priest and Balor both entered, and them three between them were kind of cleaning up a lot in there. We also got Booker T at 21. That was the one.
That
legend.
Was a cool, legend. But obviously he's from Texas, and he's contracted to the company, so it was an easy surprise to do. But it was still that was like the one fun surprise they had. But yeah, that domination period for Judgment Day, you had Otis come in and do a caterpillar spot. Other than that, you didn't really have a lot around there. Street Profits didn't last very long, things like that. But
that was Dawkins actually was towards the start. He got eliminated by Brock, and then Montez came out at 23, completely separate from Dawkins, and didn't do much either.
No.
So there are two spots where I think if you're going to have the Profits in there, you've got to have them close to each other and have it mean something. But they just felt
wasted them.
Complete filler spots. Where you could have had an NXT call up, or you could have had just something to make a bit. Even I'm not even those two, because they're both really good and they've had really good, singles years.
Oh, absolutely.
But they should have. It should have meant something, and there wasn't too many entrants in this Rumble, which didn't mean anything. Everyone got a spot, got a moment. But I think both Profits.
I think you could have done them early. If you'd have done them both early, you could have put them in a spot with the New Day or something like that, and you could have a little fun tag team bit.
Yeah,
if you're going to put them in there, that would have been like how I would have used them, something like that, maybe.
Yeah, to me, this feels like they don't know what they're doing with the Profits at the moment, because they just felt like a real afterthought.
I think they want them on TV because they like them, but they also don't have any storylines for them.
But they've got nothing. They've got nothing for them at the moment, have they? Because we mentioned the Judgment Day's domination. That was then until number 24 came out, and Edge.
So this was sort of the next big storyline bit.
Yeah, his annual return at a Rumble. He does comes in straight after Judgment Day, eliminates Priest and Balor, not Dominic,
but not Dom. Interesting,
not Dom, who stayed in. And then I think it got to the point where Edge was on the apron and got pulled off by Balor and Priest to then lead to a brawl. So he was eliminated by people already out, but we've seen that before. And then this had led to a brawl up the ramp, and Rhea Ripley coming out, attacking Edge and Beth Phoenix. And then at this point, we turn to each other and we say, well, this means I don't think Rhea's going to win the Rumble now, because this is her Mania setup. They're setting up. They've teased Beth and Rhea, and they showed videos earlier in the night, or maybe later in that. Actually, it must have been, because
interestingly, it didn't play into the Rumble at all, did it?
Yeah, but they showed, like, you know, them like basically, you know, doing the concerto to Beth, and it kind of made sense. That's where they were going. Maybe a mixed tag, or just do Beth and Rhea.
I think we're getting that now at Elimination Chamber. That's in Montreal. Obviously, Edge being Canadian, I think that'll be the match there before we get something at Mania.
Yeah, probably. And also, Beth was in her ring gear, so for her not to appear later on was a surprise. I thought she was like a shoe-in for the Rumble, and I thought she would stop Rhea winning, or maybe, you know, Rhea could have still won and eliminated Beth or whatever. But yeah, for this just to be a kind of a one-off thing and not be played out later on was a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, it was a bit weird that they didn't do anything else with it, but it was still a cool spot.
Yeah, then we got the Giant Center, Strowman, Omos.
Austin Theory as well in between that.
Yeah, Theory.
But he didn't do a lot in this Rumble, did he? He was in there for.
He was in the final four, I think.
Oh, maybe he was actually. Yeah,
he was in the final four. And then we got 28 Ricochet, and you know, at the time I'm thinking this is a weird late entry for Ricochet, for someone who has no chance of winning. But then we got maybe the spot of the night, definitely spot of the Rumble. We got Logan Paul out at 29, which I think we're okay with that, because he's been proven to be really good. And they have this spot on the apron, diving into each other in the middle of the ring. The sound was ridiculous.
Yeah,
it was
it was an awesome
spectacular.
That was definitely the best bit of. There wasn't too many like flying cool spots in this Rumble, so that was one of them. Obviously, they attempted one with the Kofi thing, which went wrong, and there was some other cool wrestling spots, but there was nothing like that. That was unique. It was really good, and there were right people to get to do it, I guess. And then obviously we knew who 30 was going to be, because he'd been announced, and it was Cody. So I do think maybe they should have brought him in a little bit earlier and left 30 as a surprise. But
yeah, although Cody has since said that I don't actually believe what he's saying, but he wasn't cleared to compete until the morning of the Rumble.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
They've been picking him up returning for a few weeks now. That can't be true. Maybe like, yeah, I just don't believe that. So I'm thinking, but because he was 30, that means he can't have been cleared to do like a proper, because I think, again, you predicted him number 1 or 2. I would have predicted him right near the start.
Yeah, but what didn't make sense though is they then did like so everyone gets eliminated. After everyone gets eliminated, this is skipping ahead a little bit, but he does like a 10-minute one-on-one match with Gunther. So
and take some chops to the chest as well.
Yeah. So if it was a fact of, you know, injury worry, then there's no reason they wouldn't have done that. So I don't think that's true either. But yeah, skipping ahead a little bit there, because we got obviously a big elimination setting up, I think, a potential Mania feud between Logan Paul and Seth Rollins.
Logan eliminated Seth. That's huge.
Logan in the last 3, was he?
Yes, because I think they said the final 4, then they forgot that Logan Paul, or they didn't mention him on purpose. I'm just trying to think who the final 4 was now. I think it was Theory, Logan Paul, Rhodes, and Gunther. Was that right?
No, Rollins was. It wasn't Theory. It was Rollins. He got eliminated.
Oh, okay,
before. Yeah. So yeah, Theory was the last 5, but yeah. So Rollins was 4th, and then Logan Paul got eliminated by Cody, and then Cody eliminated Gunther after. Like I say, it was like a back and forth for 10 minutes at least. It was.
Yeah, I actually wonder as well with this. There was like, because the finish was just a clothesline over the top rope. It was nothing spectacular.
No.
But there was a clothesline attempted about 2 minutes earlier, where Gunther basically turned round and tried to throw himself over, and they kind of messed up. And I think they were meant to go to the finish there, and they kind of messed up and just carried on, and because they basically did the same finish just a couple of minutes later. But
yeah, it's a fair point. That might have happened.
It was a great showing. These two, I mean, this is maybe excited for a future Gunther Cody match. These two, really enjoyed. And again, 2 people I would never have really pictured I'm not in my head thinking, Cody Gunther is one I'm looking forward to, but now I've seen it for a few minutes, I'm really excited for that down the line when Cody probably wins the title at some point. But Cody wins the Rumble and goes on to WrestleMania. There's only one person he can face, so we know a Mania match, really.
Yeah.
Unless
the titles are split before, but we'll get to that when we talk about the main event bit, I guess. But
yeah,
so it's highly likely that it's Cody versus Roman.
yeah.
Anything else to talk about on the actual?
No, I think we've covered the big spots really.
Yeah.
I mean, not to, we were kind of going through the rosters, thinking who was left off, and you're looking at people like Madcap Moss and Dexter Loomis as like
Ziggler was the one I thought might be in it.
Ziggler, Ali, they're probably the
Mustafa
biggest.
Ali, yeah.
But I don't think I think there's literally 2 wasted spots in the Rumble, and I think the Street Profits, just for what they did.
I also think Elias might have been a bit of a wasted spot as well, but he did at least get a guitar shot.
His guitar shot, yeah. He at least did something. I mean, we did get a few. Obviously, we got both New Day, both Profits, and both of Alpha Academy, so did get
Tag
6
teams.
spots taken up by tag teams. But I think the New Day served the purpose. I think even Otis served the purpose. Gable was probably a bit, he was just one of the guys Brock threw out, basically, Gable. Yeah. But I guess they all had some sort of relevance in there. But I just think Dawkins and Ford were unfortunately just not really doing much. But to have 2 out of 30, which I think was wasted, is pretty good going, because last year, I'm sure if you go back and listen to our review of last year's Royal Rumble, it was all over the shop. Like, because I think I think you even said, Fisher, that you were worried about the Viking Raiders maybe coming in and fighting Drew and Sheamus for a point.
Yeah.
And that would have been a bit of a waste after Viking Raiders in there. But I think overall a really well booked Rumble. The only criticism I really got is it was too obvious, but it was also the right person to win. So
yeah, exactly. Sometimes not doing a swerve is the best option, just for the sake of doing a swerve.
I just wish in the build-up they built up a few more people as potential winners. Where they didn't do that, they basically ignored everyone.
Or they kept Cody as a complete surprise if you could have him as number 30.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That is a talking point, is having him knowing you've got him at number 30 and knowing you're having him winning is just not mentioning him better off. Like, it's that's why I thought he was entering early, because they'd already announced him, and you don't want to leave your number 30 is like your big spot in the Rumble. When we get to the women's, that there was a big return at number 30 there, and if we didn't know Cody was entering, there may have been murmurings of The Rock, and maybe that's why they didn't do it, because they knew they didn't have The Rock for the Rumble. But yeah, good Rumble overall, I thought.
Yeah. Let's talk about the next match, because I think this one divided opinion a lot, which was the Mountain Dew pitch black match between Bray Wyatt and LA Knight. Seen this getting a lot of criticism, this match. I didn't mind it. I thought it was okay for what it was. I wasn't expecting an amazing match anyway. I thought the visual side of it was really cool. I thought Bray's mask and attire and everything looked great. I thought the ring and the lighting, it was okay. Like, you could at least see something. I was worried we wouldn't be able to see much. And it wasn't terrible in terms of that. The match itself was kind of average. You had a table spot that was all right. You had LA Knight using a sort of glow stick, kendo stick. And then it was just the Sister Abigail to win. It was quite straightforward. And then obviously you got the big angle after the match, where Uncle Howdy jumps off into LA Knight, but like wasn't particularly well executed. Missed him by a mile.
Yeah, there was quite clearly daylight between him and LA Knight, which is, fair enough. You're not going to jump on him because that is a pretty big height, but they didn't make it look very good. They didn't really cover it too well.
No.
Like, for me, this match was fine. I think they had to do it short because it was pitch black, and I just don't think you can have a 15-20 minute match and that like that. I think people would have got bored quite quickly. I'd be interested to see what it was like for people in the arena. because
I've heard some
it,
different
it
people that were there say stuff on
yeah, I
various
mean,
other shows.
I think it looked good on TV because you could see like the intricacies of Bray Wyatt's face paint or whatever he was wearing, and a lot of but I think a lot of it may have been missed if you're there. If you're sat high up or something, I just think you may not really
Well, obviously you've got a
get
screen,
what's
haven't
going
you?
on.
So you'd see it on there. But
Yeah,
I do think it wasn't necessarily the best live experience you could probably do. I think that's fair to say. And I kind of want Bray Wyatt just to have a normal match with no gimmicks and like, I don't mind it being a street fight style hardcore match, but no lighting, no like spooky Mr. Uncle Howdy sort of. I want him to have a normal one-on-one match at WrestleMania. And if
yeah,
they're going to do something spooky or like weird, make it cinematic, because I think then you can pre-record it and make it really good.
yeah.
But doing sort of a live in front of the crowd match of this type, it's like when he used to wrestle with the red light and that on. It just, I don't think it's the best live experience, and even on TV, it can come across a bit cringy. And I love Bray Wyatt and his character, but the matches aren't great. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't amazing. I'd say it was, it was okay. This,
Yeah, it was.
I don't think it was as bad as some people are saying, but I also don't think it was like amazing. It was basically an advertisement match for a new drink that Mount and Dew are making.
Yeah,
that is the
exactly.
purpose of it.
Yeah, and
it reminds me of the Zombies match, which was an advert for a zombie film that had just come out.
Yeah, exactly.
So they did a zombie match, and this was kind of like that, although it was a lot better than the
At least there was those zombies at the end to eat LA Knight alive.
It wasn't as bad as that, obviously, but it was something. I don't know. It was added variety to the show, I guess. But
yeah, and in a show where these middle matches really felt like they didn't add much to the pay-per-view.
Certainly the next one.
If you take both of these singles matches out between the Rumbles, I don't think the show loses anything, really. No. And again, I'm
literally a buffer Wyatt, between.
I'm a big LA Knight fan. I'm a big Belair and Alexa fan as well. We'll get to that in a minute. But they just didn't do much, these matches. No. I guess this is a way to have Bray Wyatt, because the spectacle of Bray Wyatt is better than his in-ring. And you want to have the spectacle of when you've got Bray Wyatt on your roster, you want to have the spectacle of him there. But you don't want him in the Rumble probably, because he's a hard person to book in a Rumble, I guess.
Yeah.
Especially if he's got all this weird Uncle Howdy stuff. I mean, I don't even know how you go about Bray Wyatt in the Rumble. It gets a bit confusing. So
unless he was just being Bray Wyatt, like the man.
Yeah, if he's just his normal self, yeah.
But not in terms of what the story had.
Yeah, so this was a way to get him on the card without having him in the Rumble or anywhere near a title picture. And I guess LA Knight, someone you can take out of the Rumble who probably wouldn't have been a contender to win it anyway. Doesn't lose too much.
That's true.
I think that's probably why they did what they did. But yeah, I mean, I don't hate the match. I also don't love it. I just think it was all right. And I still stand that I think I'd have had an LA Knight win if I was booking it. But yeah, I've got no problem. So Bray Wyatt winning.
On predictions wise, it cost you and Krusty big time.
Yeah, I know. Took a risk. But I don't regret it. Even after a result, I'd still do the same thing again. I'd still predict the same thing. So
fair enough.
Fine. I'm fine with that. Yeah, so we kind of already touched on it a bit, but Alexa Bliss and Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's title. I mean, I don't have much to say on this one. This could have been on a Raw. This
had no talking points to it whatsoever, really.
I mean, it was a straightforward win for Belair. No, I wouldn't say there was too much jeopardy in there. I don't think Bliss hit Sister Abigail. I don't think she hit.
She went for it. She went for it, which was part of the story, I guess. And I think a mandible claw as well at one point. But
yeah,
I'm just looking it up, and the match went 7 minutes, which for a title match on a pay-per-view is pretty short.
And I was gonna say the only, obviously apart from the Rumble, but yeah, the one women's title match on this on the card is you'd probably want a bit more. And I think the fact that we had both of these matches, Bray and Alexa, I thought there might be some way they try and join them. I don't know how they would have done it, but with Uncle Howdy. But again, we got the after angle with Alexa looking distraught, and then Uncle Howdy on the
Yeah, I just want them to
screen.
pull the trigger on this Alexa Bliss stuff now, because it feels like it's been teased too much about doing the Sister Abigail and like not actually doing much. But yeah, I think it needs to move on a little bit. And the same with Bray, really. Like, I know we're obviously going to probably drag this story out to WrestleMania, whatever happens. But yeah.
I'm not too thrilled on Alexa being definitely thrown back into this Bray Wyatt stuff.
No,
I would rather she just was Alexa Bliss. But
so would I. But I think the issue with it is Alexa Bliss has come out and said several times that that's what she likes.
Yeah.
And I think they're trying to let the talent sort of express themselves and do the characters and the sort of gimmicks that they want to do. And we've seen that a lot with the Triple H stuff, obviously turning LA Knight back. Even like KO, he's like NXT KO, isn't he? Like prize fighter Kevin Owens, like even little things like that.
Yeah.
So I think they're giving the talent a lot of say on their creativity in that sense.
Yeah.
So that's probably why they're heading this direction with Alexa Bliss. But yeah, there wasn't a lot to this match. Honestly, we might as well like move on. Bianca won.
Yeah.
Bianca won, and that was it. And then you got the Uncle Howdy tease thing afterwards on the screen, and that was it. There was no interference in the actual match itself. And yeah, it was just bang average. It could have been done on Raw.
Yeah. Completely agree. So the women's Rumble match, again, they've decided to go back-to-back women's matches on the card, which was an interesting choice. Not really a criticism or a praise for them, but just something to note. I've got a question for you though, but before we get into the women's Rumble, do you know the 4 people to appear in every women's Royal Rumble?
I'll have a guess. Natalia must be one.
Natalia's one, yeah.
She's always in them. Tamina's
another one, yep.
Dana Brooke.
Dana Brooke's another one,
I'm sure they mentioned it on.
Yeah, and there's one more. It's appeared in every women's Rumble.
Trying to think who the 4th one might be. It's got to be someone who's been Liv Morgan.
Liv Morgan, yeah. Well done. You got all 4 without any wrong answers. Yeah.
Well, I know. I was thinking who hasn't really been like in the title scene. That's been in the Rumble matches. Like Dana Brooke and Tamina are never in title matches, but they're always just thrown into the Rumble. Yeah. Obviously, Liv has had the title recently, but that was this year before, the end of last year before the Royal Rumble. So yeah. And I knew she had the quickest ever elimination in a women's Rumble until this match when that record was beaten.
It was, yeah. So we opened with Liv herself and Rhea Ripley. Interesting because we saw in the men's Rumble 1 and 2 last gone to till the end, and even Sheamus was in the last 8, 10. He was towards the end of the Rumble. And we saw that again here. I think they're actually the last 2, weren't they? In the end,
they were the last
Rhea
2.
and Liv, yeah. So they, to book 1 and 2 strong in both Rumbles.
Yeah, I did think that made it look like there's no disadvantage for being number 1, which is a little bit silly. And it was also heels that were doing it a lot of not Liv, but Gunther and Rhea. I'd seen some criticism of that. I don't mind that much, but I think Rhea doing it and going to win from number 1, if anyone's ever going to do it in a women's division, her right now makes the sense to do that.
And she's the first to ever do it in the women's. So yeah, pretty good from her. I mean, one thing just to say about this Rumble, just as a general point, is there wasn't too much legends coming back for the sake of it, just to try and fill the roster.
No, they used their own
loads of NXT,
roster.
But this shows the work Triple H has done in terms of beefing out the women's division, even if most of them are pretty irrelevant.
Yeah,
like, no offense.
It's going to take time to
Emma, B-Fab,
that's the thing. It's going to take time for a lot of them to get any popularity, because they haven't. I mean, Tegan Knox and people like that, like they just haven't had any main roster TV time. So it's going to take time. And yeah, it's a shame hardly any of them got reactions, but I did think the NXT showings in this Rumble were good, which I liked. I wish they had a couple of them in the men's. I think they could have done with that.
I usually like that. So Roxanne Perez was out at 8 and did pretty well. Not amazing, not as good as the other NXT
No, but
participant.
she
Sorry, one of
looked
the others.
really good while she was in the match, I thought.
She didn't come up with her belt though. That's the only thing. I don't know why she wasn't with her
No,
belt,
that was
because
odd.
most others were with their belts.
In terms of the rest of the early entrants, there wasn't that much apart from we got Damage Control.
So that Damage Control dominated a lot of the first half of this Rumble.
Yeah,
that they were in, and I mean Rhea as well, but a lot of the eliminations. I think
they got 7 between them.
I think Dakota Kai and was joint with Rhea Ripley for most eliminations, even though a lot of Dakotas were joints. Just to
and in between, just after that as well, you had Natalia return, and she got a really big pop. I did notice here.
They really overdid the Natalia Shayna feud that I'd forgotten ever existed.
I forgot it happened.
The camera stuck on those two for ages. I was like, what's going on there? Do these two dislike each other? Like, I completely
that was
forgot.
quite funny. Yeah, then you had Candice LeRae come out, who did absolutely nothing. She was in there for 5 minutes, but she just did nothing.
I mean, Shayna Baszler, she was at number 5 and didn't do a lot. And you just feel if Ronda was around, Shayna would have probably had a bigger role in this Rumble, but was pretty irrelevant in the Rumble.
Zoe Stark come out at 13, and she had a pretty good showing, actually. She was in there for 26 minutes. She didn't get any eliminations, but she lasted a long time, and she did some cool stuff while she was in there.
Yeah, she's out for a long time, so was in for a long time. And I think it probably all built up to Becky Lynch coming out at 15.
Yeah, and that's where the Damage Control domination ended. But Bayley did eliminate Becky Lynch.
Yeah, early in the Rumble.
Yeah, 10 minutes she was in there.
I was expecting Becky to be there till like the last 2 or 3.
Yeah, and they did this with the men's one with Lesnar and Lashley as well, where they sort of got these big storylines. They put them in the middle of the Rumble and they had them eliminated quite quickly, so that they didn't sort of take over. Because people thought, well, they're not winning because this storyline's heading in a different direction. We know kind of where they're heading. Obviously, Becky did eliminate both Dakota and Io before Bayley got her out, so that was all of them lot kind of gone. Which kind of allowed again a little spell of sort of Rhea and Liv being the main 2 in the Rumble until
we had a little run of returns. So 3 out of 4. I'm trying to look who was number 19 to enter. Oh, Tamina. So, but the 3 around Tamina, you had Asuka at 17,
and that was awesome.
But with her new face paint and shorter hair, she got the biggest pop of any Rumble entrant of the night, men's and women's,
I would say. I think she got a huge apart pop, from obviously the main event segment. She got the loudest reaction of anything all night, I think, and she got to obviously the final 3. You were kind of thinking she might win at one point, and then I started to believe it at one point as well, that she had a chance. And I would love to see them run back Asuka and Charlotte. But this time, Asuka beats her at WrestleMania. Yeah, because obviously that was the storyline where Charlotte beat Asuka's undefeated streak a few years ago. You can run that back, but I know they're on different brands. But if she'd have won the Rumble, you could have done that. And that's what I would still like to see them do it. I don't know how they would do it, but maybe.
Yeah, and then you had Piper Niven, not Doudrop, return at 18. That was cool. So just after Asuka.
She looked good in this as well.
Yeah, someone who actually I think I'd read in the build up to the Rumble that she had long form COVID or something and wasn't in a good way. That's why she'd been off TV for a while because of ill health. Yeah, so I wasn't expecting her at all in this Rumble. So that was have her, but also the name change.
Yeah, that was what was really cool.
Yeah, so she looked great as well. Like she'd never gone. Like just didn't miss a beat at all. Piper Niven. Brilliant. Then you got Tamina's stare down spot, which they do every year in the middle. I think it's with Piper Niven from memory. And then a genuine. I mean, I think you would have. I
expected this one because. But I'd read about a couple of weeks ago that she'd already signed and was waiting for creative.
Yeah, Chelsea Green, and they seem to say that she was signed. It wasn't like a one-off appearance. They seem to make out.
Well, I hope she is signed. If it was a one-off appearance, what was the point? Because she was eliminated in 5 seconds.
Yeah, the fastest ever. She runs in, Rhea throws her straight out the other side.
And I think that's got to play in her character, right?
Yeah,
I saw some suggestions. Maybe she's going to turn into like the crazy character she was in Impact. Maybe she comes in as Chelsea, and then this kind of she keeps going like maybe she loses her first match as well, and then just turns mad.
Yeah, well,
something like that.
her kind of character was the hot mess.
Yeah, in
last
Impact,
time I saw her, yeah. So,
but not obviously not in. That wasn't ever a character in WWE, so it'd be interesting to see where this goes. But I hope it goes somewhere, and that wasn't just them going, "We don't know what to do with you, so we're just going to throw you out." Because otherwise, God, welcome back. Like it's going to be long for you. It's not going to be great for you if that's the direction you're going.
Yeah, but another member of the women's roster, and it wasn't the last return of this Rumble.
No.
We got Zelina Vega dressed as Yuri, I think, from Street Fighter.
Yeah, so she always does cool cosplays. That was cool.
And she lasted quite a while, maybe because she was promoting a Street Fighter game.
Yeah, she got one elimination as well.
They kept her in.
Good for her, which was Xia Li. Her and they had like a little Street Fighter bit on the side.
Oh yeah, that
bit was cool.
Yeah, I didn't mind that. Didn't mind that at all. Michelle McCool, probably the next surprise entrant.
Yeah, obviously she was sat in the crowd earlier in the night. It showed
it was pictured.
In the Bailey. It was during the Bailey Alexa Bliss match, and then she just hopped over the barricade, leaving her kids sat there.
I mean, she's been in.
She had quite a cool showing. She was lasted 13 minutes, got 2 eliminations. Did a little Styles clash. Looks pretty good, I thought.
Styles clash, yeah. And then there wasn't.
Well, it was Indy Hartwell as well at 26.
Oh yeah, Indy Hartwell was the other one. Yeah,
but she didn't do much.
Call up. I hope that's a permanent call up, Indy.
Yeah, and then really it was the last big thing was number 30.
Yeah, this is a genuine. Like, I am almost stunned by this one.
This one actually did genuinely surprise me. I didn't.
Nia Jax is back in WWE. I can't believe
I don't know what to make of it really, because she had her moments, but overall, she obviously there was quite a lot of controversies with like injuries of people and her character sometimes. Yeah, wrestling match wise, is she great? It's an odd one, but
it is, and
they do need more women stars. And if built right, booked right, you can bill her as like a monster heel.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but she hasn't done much, if any, wrestling since leaving WWE. So she's not like she's been kept in shape. I mean, who knows what she does outside of, what's on TV. But I just hadn't heard of her being signed up by any other promotion in the meantime. So, and she's been released for 6 months plus now, surely. So just a surprise. I actually thought she was done with wrestling completely, Nia Jax.
Yeah, I didn't think she'd be back in WWE, especially under Triple H's. She didn't really come across as someone that Triple H would be interested in either. But obviously he's seen a reason to bring her back. So I wonder what she's going to do. I mean, she could be potential. It wouldn't surprise me if she was potentially involved in a Mania match if she's been brought back. Because otherwise, why bother? I'm not saying I want that. I'm just saying I can see it happening.
I mean, I said to you and Krusty on when we watched it that I think they need to start creating tag teams in this women's division, because there's too many of these singles people with absolutely zero direction, and there's only 2 women's titles, and I think we can probably reel off the title matches for Mania. You're going to have Rhea v Belair, and you're probably going to have Charlotte v Asuka or Liv, or
Liv, maybe Raquel, maybe
probably Raquel. Yeah, I mean, who knows if Ronda decides to come back? You're probably going to pair up probably Bayley and Becky.
Yeah, and then potentially a tag title match, which could be Ronda and Shayna, but who knows?
Depends on Ronda. But so there's a lot of women doing not a lot. So I just think the tag titles are there. Damage Control are a decent champions. They're 2 decent superstars. So just throw some teams together. Maybe you throw Nia. Who was she with before? Shayna. Or you have, I think Nia and Tamina were a team. I think I actually saw them pictured with the Bloodline later on. Yeah,
they were. Yeah, they were.
So maybe you do a Nia. I maybe don't join the Bloodline. I don't know if I want Nia Jax in the Bloodline, but maybe you can have Nia and Tamina doing like some sort of tag team thing. Like, who knows? But the tag division needs bolstering up, and the roster is now, I think, big enough that you can start creating 3 or 4 tag teams and it'd be fine. So I think that's what they need to do. But I'm not upset with her being back because it's,
They do need more women of notable names. So
yeah, I
in
mean,
that sense, I get it. But
they had BFAB in this Rumble, who isn't really a wrestler. We haven't seen a wrestle really. So
Yeah.
like, and 3 NXT call-ups. Maybe that's not too many. That's probably all right actually. But yeah, but a fairly decent Rumble. And so the ending, you have the 3, Asuka, Liv, and Rhea, the final 3, all on the apron. Asuka spits the mist towards Rhea, hits Liv in the eye.
Rhea ducks, hits Liv, but then Rhea and Asuka. Rhea has a little stumble spot where you think she's going to be eliminated, recovers from it, eliminates Asuka, and then does a cool little throw out with her legs on Liv. That was a cool.
Yeah, she's hanging, and you genuinely think, I don't know, she's going to be able to put herself back up there, and then she picks up and does a Hurricane Rana head scissor type thing to get Liv out. So quite a cool ending. And again, the right winner. I think Rhea Ripley was the obvious choice.
But not thing is, it's predictable good better than them just going, oh, here's a swerve, Nia Jax, we'll have her win. Then everyone would have been in uproar. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
sometimes the right winner and the obvious winner is the right choice. And we had that. Okay, we had it for both Rumbles, but
we did. So both Rumbles, the winner was predictable, and also even the entrances, it was 30 and 1 that won. One shouldn't be predictable, but it's happened 4 times now in Rumble history, and I don't know about other numbers, but that's got to be right up there in terms of most entries to win. 30, I think, is obviously close to it as well.
I think it might
27 or something.
I think it's 27 and 30. Well, I saw in the build up to the Rumble with the top 2, and we're joint top. So if 30 must have now overtaken. Which I guess makes sense, though. Have 30 is the most obvious, because it should be.
Yeah,
right?
it should, yeah.
So then next year's Rumble, they can build up saying, well, 30's had the most wins ever. It's the most obvious number to win. And I get that. It should be.
Yeah, it is. It's the spot you want to have. It annoys me when people say, I think it was Lacey said she was going to go in and throw 29 people over the top rope. It's like, well, you don't need to. You don't need to throw 1 over to win the Rumble. You don't need to throw 29 over. But
they all say that, though, don't they?
I know. That's just one of the things that winds me up when people say that.
But yeah, those 2 Rumbles overall, pretty solid. Much better than last year's, particularly the men's. And I don't know which one I preferred overall. They were both good. It's hard to say. I think they both had some good threads throughout, some good stories built in. Not massive surprises, but obviously the women's had a couple which might put it on the edge.
The thing is, the men's was more star-studded, just because there's more top men than there is top women. The way they book things, and also it set up a lot of Mania stuff, whereas the women's didn't really.
No, not too much.
And because women only get 2, 3, 4 matches max on Mania, so they can only, whereas men have 10, 11 matches on Mania. So there's just more room to set up men's matches. So I think the men's, but then the women's had genuine shocks. Like, I wasn't expecting Chelsea Green or Nia Jax. So yeah. And that's one of the best things about a Rumble, is the shocks of who's going to turn up. Whereas the men's didn't really have any.
No, Logan Paul was a mild surprise because I thought he was injured. Booker T was obviously a bit of a surprise, but
Edge was fairly predictable. I think
I wasn't shocked by Edge being in it at all. There wasn't a lot in there, but it depends what you want the Rumble to be. If you like massive surprises, then it wasn't great, but it probably wasn't the Rumble for you. If you like it being story driven, good wrestling, the roster being used well, then it had that, certainly.
Yeah, I will say both rosters, men and women's, were used well in these Rumbles.
Overall,
I think they did a great job with who they chose in the Rumble as a general rule. So I think both were good. But we should move on to the main event.
Well, just before we do move on to the main event, there was one other little segment in the ring that they did, which was a concert by Hardy. Just one sentence. What are your thoughts?
I don't really care about Hardy.
It was bad. It was bad. that was all I was going to say.
It wasn't good, and I don't think the show would have been better if it wasn't on there.
Yeah, it
in
would
all
have.
honesty.
Add another 5 minutes to Belair and Bliss and make that match good, and then take that away.
Yeah, but I guess they have to have him on there if he's writing the music and stuff. They've done it before. These
I get it,
concerts.
but just it wasn't for me. Right, your main event then, Simon. We've been going a little while, probably nearly an hour. I could probably spend 2 hours just talking about this angle, after match angle. But
the match itself, straight up, the match being on last, which I think you kind of thought might happen.
I saw the night before that it was, rumored that was going to happen.
We're then anticipating probably The Rock for this to go on last. You're thinking something.
I knew something huge was happening. And I thought, well, it's either going to be The Rock or the Bloodline storyline is going to be great.
The video package before the match, it was like first chapter, middle of the story,
and then
final chapter is tonight. So that made me think, well, this is the end of Sami. Like that's what's happening tonight. They're ending this Sami Zayn, because all of the video package was about Sami Zayn, not about Kevin Owens really. He was in there, but it was basically Sami Zayn's storyline progression.
Yeah, it was.
So, interestingly, for a match that doesn't involve Sami Zayn, that's what this match was all about. Interestingly, and the match itself was very good. I thought very good.
And interestingly, even from the start, the Usos and Solo Sikoa didn't come out with Roman, but Sami Zayn did, just to add to that intrigue on the entrance. And the match was really good.
Sami's facial reactions were superb. But what I loved as well was you had Heyman watching Sami on the outside.
Yeah.
So like everything Sami's doing is under the microscope. Like Heyman's watching like a hawk. Like Reigns keeps looking over, check on him. Just brilliant. You get your standard ref bump in a Roman Reigns title match. This tends to happen a lot. It's not really a criticism.
And a low blow as well. He does that a lot. That's kind of become commonplace in Roman's matches. And it was kind of predictable, but
there's a point where he asks for Sami to throw a chair in. Sami hesitates probably just long enough for the ref to get up.
Yeah, Sami was well
done. Stunner from KO and a kick out.
I know we had him going through the barricade. We had him smashed against the steps. He took some big bumps.
Those moves on the steps, the back of his head they were horrific. You can't really protect yourself from those. I'm sure there's a way they did, but it just looked like there was no way you can stop your head hitting that step there.
Yeah, I think he put his arms out a bit, but it looks savage.
It just looked brutal.
And this match was really, really good, as you'd expect from a Roman Reigns Kevin Owens match.
Quite a lot of decent near falls from both ends. There's a few times I think Roman hit a couple of spears and KO kept kicking out.
Kicked out, it did take a lot to beat KO. They didn't have him just beaten like the Bray and the Bianca matches. It was just like the finisher came out, one finisher, and that was it. Whereas here we had barricades, we had steps, we had finisher kickouts. We had a lot to beat KO. And he also got a visual pin on Roman with the ref down where he would have got a 3 count. So he's got a legitimate case for another title match, really. I don't think we're going to get that, of course, but
because KO took a beating after this match.
So let's get to it because the match was great.
Yeah, in
itself, Roman wins. The match went about 20 minutes, but when that had ended, we knew, obviously not watching it live, watching it the next morning, there was about 15-20 minutes left of the show, so we knew that we were getting a big spicy angle after the match, and we got what I've seen some people say was the greatest close to a pay-per-view of all time. I don't know if I'd quite go that far, but it was certainly an incredible segment.
Yeah, phenomenal. Just the beatdown of Kevin Owens, the Usos and Solo come out. Just beat it up. I think they all hit their finishes on him. The super kicks galore. There's
they handcuff him to the ropes.
Yeah, then the handcuffs came out.
And then we get the Roman going to hit him. I mean, they do the thing in the corner with the chair as well, didn't they? The thing
and it's kind of a long build up, and the whole time again, if you just watch this back and just watch Sami Zayn, he's very uncomfortable, and he like hesitates to step in a few times but doesn't do it. He
goes to sort of tap Roman on the shoulder but doesn't do it.
Yeah, he's very good. And then obviously it gets to the point where KO could literally barely move. He essentially looks almost dead. He's handcuffed to the ropes, and Roman wields the steel chair, and Sami Zayn finally decides to jump in between them. And what I really liked about this bit is Sammy's essentially saying, Roman, you don't need this is beneath you. You don't need to do this. And then you see Roman kind of thinking, he's like, you're right, it is beneath me. So you do it.
Yeah,
it's like,
almost
yeah, brilliant.
That makes it so good because he's like, well, yeah, it's probably beneath me, but it's not beneath you because you're lower than me. And then Sami thinks about it, and then what we got was a brilliant shot of the chair, and because it was very similar to the Shield when Roman got hit by Rollins, the way it looked and the way Roman sold it and fell down to his knees. So it was a callback to that as well. And it was just beautiful. And the crowd reaction when Sami hits that chair, I watched it back because we watched it. We were so involved, I wasn't really paying that much attention to the crowd. We didn't have the volume up that high. I watched the clip back,
stunned.
And honestly, the crowd reaction is mental. And that was great. And then the bit that comes afterwards makes this even better and even more intriguing because obviously Roman then loses his mind. He's saying, get him. And then Solo and Jimmy are beating him up. Roman beats him up. KO's just out of it watching, but not really watching because he's out of it. But he's just led there. Yeah. And then they try and get Jay, who's just stood in the corner.
Yeah, so I remember saying at the time, I was like, Jay's not getting involved here. This is only Jimmy and Solo.
What was interesting is he wasn't stopping them.
Yeah.
But he also wasn't helping them. He was conflicted.
Yeah, that's the word.
That was the thing. He wasn't going Roman like taking the chair off Roman like I'm going to hit you with it, but he also wasn't helping at all. And then when they get him to try and help, he just rolls out of the ring, and he's basically crying.
Yeah,
really good acting. Walks to the back, and Roman's just like can't believe it. Jimmy, where does this leave the Usos? This is so good because you can go so many. I've seen so many suggestions,
so many questions. Yeah,
and I mean there are so many things you can do it, and it was so good and so well done. And yeah, I loved all of this. It was just fantastic.
Yeah, phenomenal. And I think now there's so many different strands to the fallout from this. You've obviously got Sami Zayn. What's happening to Sami Zayn now? Is Sami Zayn facing Roman in Elimination Chamber? Is he going to enter the chamber to try and face Roman? Is he going to, team with KO and go for the tag titles? I mean, all of those things could happen, but there's three quite obvious avenues for Sami Zayn right now. He could win the chamber in Montreal. He could lose Roman in Montreal, or he could do like an option C where he takes on Solo and Jimmy, and if he wins, then he goes for the tag title. So there's a tag title.
Yeah, because it depends as well on the on Jay. It's going to be so interesting these next few weeks to see how that storyline between Jay and the Bloodline unfolds. He posted on Instagram last night saying "run it back" with a picture of him and Roman. And
did he say like I'm done?
I'm out. I'm out.
Yeah. I'm out.
I don't believe him. I don't believe him. But I believe him in what I mean by that is I don't necessarily in this moment. I think that's probably what the character's thinking. But I don't think that's the direction it'll end up being. I think we'll see. I don't know what segments they've got planned for Raw tonight if they're going to be on Raw at all. But I don't think they'll do a lot more because I think Raw will be Cody's night to cut a promo and all that about WrestleMania. And really, Sami and KO should sell these injuries, particularly KO. So I don't maybe expect them to be on the TV shows this week. But you can have the Bloodline on SmackDown on Friday, minus Jay, who is at home.
I don't want to see Jay just in with Bloodline again on Friday.
No, certainly not this week. And then you can build it up. Maybe he returns the week after. And maybe Sami does as well. And you can do a thing where like they're not friends, but they're not enemies. And then Jay just kind of keeps himself to himself, doesn't want to get involved. And then when it comes to Elimination Chamber is when he has to make a sort of a decision. Does he go with his friend or does he go with his family? And ultimately, I think he's choosing his family in the long term. But I think we're going to get... And what's interesting as well is because we've got that SmackDown Tag Team Tournament in between.
Yeah, do they defend the tag team title match coming up?
Yeah. Does Jimmy defend the title? Does Solo step in? there's so many questions that need to be answered.
Yeah, I know, and I think the J factor has made this whole story just that like extra level of like just so much more interesting, because Jay is the one who was against Roman Reigns from the start. Like if you're going back to the start of all of this story, Jay is against Roman. Jimmy's never really been against Roman. He kind of fell in line straight away. Solo's always been in line. Paul Heyman, okay, he flirted with Brock a bit, but he's basically always been in line. Jay was fully against Roman at the start. And the story of Sammy, up until this Rumble build, has been Sammy and Jay. And they have gone from Jay being anti-Sammy to the point of like when everyone else liked Sammy, Jay was the one against him.
Yeah.
And they've gone all the way now where Jay basically said he loves Sammy and they're brothers. And for I'm not saying he's definitely leaving the bloodline. Honestly, they could go loads of ways with this, but that's the interesting part for me right now is Jey Uso. That's become more interesting almost than Sami Zayn right now, because I've got no idea what Jey Uso is doing. And like you say, they've got tag titles round the corner. They're double tag champs. They've got you could set up Jay and Sammy as a tag team, like some weird tag team alliance that forms from all of this. You could do you could run back Jay and Roman again. Probably not for Mania, but if you haven't got anything better for if you can't get The Rock, why not run back Jay and Roman at Mania? I mean, who knows? It's just incredible.
It's very intriguing.
And I definitely think KO should not be involved until the Chamber. So if I was booking it, I would have KO return at Elimination Chamber and save Sammy in some way. Whether that's they do Sammy and Roman and then they attack Sammy after the match and then KO comes down and saves Sammy. And
then you can have Jay involved in that as well. Like maybe Roman beats Sammy, goes to attack Sammy, KO comes down to save Sammy, but then Jey Uso takes out KO, and that sets up KO and Sammy versus the Usos. Yeah. Then you've got that your WrestleMania match, which I think is the direction they should go in. It's very interesting with that tag titles in the meantime, because
the finals on.
Well, what I was thinking you could do is Braun Strowman and Ricochet, I think, are going to win that, right? Now they've been added into it. Yeah, you could potentially, because KO's on Raw and Sammy's on SmackDown, you need to sort of get them on the same brand, really. If they're going to go for the tag titles at WrestleMania. I think you could have the dissension between Jimmy and Jay, but get so bad that it costs them the SmackDown tag titles, and Braun and Ricochet win the SmackDown tag titles, which they can defend against at WrestleMania against like Imperium or the Gardo or a multi-man match of some sort, which is cool because it gives Strowman and Ricochet something to do, right? And I think they deserve to be on the card. And then what you could do is, because Roman is so done with Sammy, he's like, I'd never want to see you on this brand again. Like after Elimination Chamber, he's like, if you lose to me, I never want to see you again on SmackDown. Yeah, which I can imagine Roman's character doing, right?
Yeah.
And plausible. That means that Sammy leaves SmackDown and goes to a Raw, and then you have Raw. Say Sammy and KO versus the Usos for the Raw tag belts, and they win the Raw Tag Team Championships at WrestleMania. That is the direction I can see it. The dilemma is, of course, Sammy's got so popular now. A lot of people are saying he needs to be facing Roman one-on-one at Mania, and I get it. But you can't have him and Cody both face Roman one-on-one, because you can't have one of them beat Roman on night one and then Roman be not unbeaten going into the second match. I know you made that point.
I think realistically you have to do. Well, maybe you don't have to. I was gonna say you should. That's the word. You should do Cody on night 2 because he's won the Rumble. Yeah, he's the guy you've put your eggs in. The eggs in the basket for your next world champion. That's quite obvious.
Yeah, the closing shot of Mania should be Cody lifting both belts up.
And
or at
that's
least
the
one of
other-
the belts up if you don't split them.
Yeah, that's the other big thing about all this as well, by the way, is how do they build Cody and Roman? Because there is no story there other than Cody wants to be
Cody
world
is that
champion and Roman
Cody
Reigns is
wants to be
champion.
world champion. Roman Reigns has never once mentioned Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, they've got to have interactions, and they've got to do that alongside all of this stuff we're talking about with the bloodline, which is like basically going to take up all of your time. So that's the Cody angle in all of this is really interesting. How they build, because they're going to have to build Cody and Roman like as the biggest title match possible. Really, that's what
I think they won't do
that's their
loads about
task.
it until after Elimination Chamber. Obviously, they'll have Cody cut promos about winning the Rumble. I don't think he'll wrestle because I don't think they want to risk him. And then they'll sort of keep it on hold a little bit. They'll keep Cody doing something, keep him on the shows. They might have him interact. They might have him interact once, maybe, until Elimination Chamber. Then that last few weeks from Elimination Chamber to Rumble, they'll throw everything at Cody and Roman, and they'll split off the two feuds if that's where they go.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, they're in a position now where I think, well, I'm pretty sure Sammy's the preferred fans' choice over Cody if they could choose one person to face Roman.
And that's the dilemma they got. Do they change their plans? Because the rumored planned main event for Elimination Chamber is Sammy v Roman, but you can't do that again at Mania if you're doing it at Chamber. So
yeah,
do you just have the match? I mean, the match. I'm looking forward to that match in Montreal if they do it, because the crowd is going to be mental. The story is going to be great. Obviously, Sammy's going to lose, but like, can you imagine?
I mean, we were speculating straight after watching the Rumble that they could even do like a Bloodline Elimination Chamber because there's 6 of them with Sami Zayn.
Funny enough, when Krusty suggested that, I heard someone else say that. But
I mean, I don't know.
It'd be too...
I don't know how you have Roman Reigns
that's the thing.
Not win for one.
And then what do you do? Like you can't do it for the title, surely. Like, what? How do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a scenario somewhere where you have an Elimination Chamber where basically if Sammy wins, he faces Roman at Mania, and you throw in Solo, Jimmy, and then like some other contenders like Drew, whoever. It doesn't really matter the other spots. Basically, Roman makes sure that Solo and Jimmy and maybe Jay by that point, if Jay's back with the bloodline, maybe throw Jay in there anyway and see what Jay does in that scenario, and just say, okay, Sammy or Jay, whichever one wins, maybe they do something where you face Roman at Mania and Roman just sends in his Solo and Jimmy to stop it happening. I mean, there's 100 different ways they could do stuff. I mean, I've heard stuff about a 6-man tag of KO, Sammy, and Jay versus Simi, Solo, Jimmy, and Roman at Elimination Chamber.
Yeah, there's so many different directions, and that's what makes it so interesting. And I'm sure maybe we'll do a pod where we book the WrestleMania card. I know we wanted to do that before the Rumble, ideally, and we didn't get around to doing it. But I think now there's a clearer picture. I don't
think the Rumble's changed too much from it. I think we would have both said Rhea v Bianca and Roman v Cody. I think we'd have both said that before the Rumble. So I don't think the Rumble winners have necessarily changed what we would have initially said. But yeah, I think it'd be interesting to go through because we are on the road to WrestleMania now. We are basically there, and it's just, this is the best time of year for any wrestling fan, any WWE fan. It's just, I love this time of year. Mania onwards is just, every show is great, and I cannot wait for Monday Night Raw tonight. I literally cannot wait for it. Even if there's no bloodline stuff in it, I still can't wait because I want to see what Cody does and Rhea. Like, there's so much going on right now. It's just incredible. And like, I think I sent you and Chris earlier, like someone's put together like a kind of what seems like a logical Mania card given of what we've got so far. And it's phenomenal. You've got,
it's a good card.
Like Ray v Dominic's like the 6th, 7th best match on the card.
I'd say.
And that is huge, really. Ray v Dominic, that is huge. Father v son, like, it's incredible. Yeah, it's just, yeah. What a time.
Yeah, it would be. That would be a really good card. I just can't wait for WrestleMania.
Yeah, but I guess we've kind of maybe said our overall thoughts of the Rumble, but I think it was a very good show. Very good show. Almost all of the results were predictable, and I think that's proven by our predictions league, where I think we had 6 or 7 people join with 100% records.
Yeah. It was very interesting.
Right.
There was 7 people, I think, at the
Yeah.
top with 100%. It was. I mean, that shows that the show was quite predictable, but
Still great.
there was only 5 matches on the card, so it's probably not that difficult to get 5 out of 5, especially when Roman Reigns is in one of them as well. Like, really, it was so obvious he was never losing. So
it's interesting though, because I think last year, I don't think anyone got the Rumble winners, or very few people did. I know I didn't get any Rumble winners last year. So for so many of us to get the Rumble winners, again, shows how obvious it was. But let's see, I don't think that ruined the show much. I still think the show was unbelievable.
Yeah, I think the only down points of the show were those 2 sort of matches in the middle that didn't deliver as they could have been. Kind of let the show down a little bit, but I think overall it was still a really, really good show. Not perfect, but pretty good, and sets up a very intriguing WrestleMania card, where I think WrestleMania will be an amazing show. With no real, like, there might be 1 or 2 matches we don't care about, but I think we're going to be invested in so much of the card. That's the good thing. I don't think, because sometimes the big match, last year it felt like they put so much effort into Brock and Roman, a little bit of effort into Sasha and Becky and Bianca, a couple of other matches that had okay feuds, but really
it was like
that much
Stone Cold and KO, which wasn't really a match.
Well, the thing is, Seth and Cody didn't have a build.
Yeah.
It was the anticipation of it being Cody. Stone Cold and KO didn't have a build, and it was meant to be the KO show. You had Sami Zayn feuding with Johnny Knoxville. You had, which was entertaining when it came, but like you didn't know what to expect. You had, what else did you have? It was kind of, there was some good matches on the card, but it wasn't. There was no matches where you're like, wow. I remember AJ and Edge actually was one where I was like, that's going to be amazing. Other than that, there wasn't a lot of matches where I was like, wow. Like, whereas this, I think we're going to be so invested in Lashley and Lesnar. Whatever Sami Zayn does, whether he's in a match with Roman or a tag match, whatever Cody's doing, Rhea Ripley's match, I think, is going to be huge. I think Bray Wyatt's match is very intriguing. If Ray and Dom does happen, that's massive. Like you said, I think Gunther against Drew, if they go down that route, or Gunther, Drew, Sheamus, will be an incredible wrestling match. Everyone, the feud doesn't have to be exciting. When they get in the ring and the bell rings, that's going to be a match for the year contender. I just know it. So there's so much there that I'm looking forward to, and that's a lot of that has been either set up in this Rumble or who's coming, basically.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Just, good.
I think that's probably about it for now. So obviously, thanks to those who predicted. Carry on if you didn't do that well this time. Hopefully, do well next time. Apart from you and Krusty, obviously.
So it's basically me and Krusty were at the bottom this time.
Yeah,
we're giving you a head start.
And follow us on Twitter at Recharge Wrestle. Subscribe to us on YouTube if you'll listen to us on a podcast. And we'll hopefully be back on Thursday for our normal weekly show. And I look forward to reviewing the aftermath of Rumble, seeing what happens on Raw tonight and talking about that potentially. We might start thinking about our Mania card, because we probably won't talk too much about SmackDown because that was before the Rumble. So we might have a shorter pod, WWE-wise, if it's just Raw. So we might have something different. Who knows?
Yeah, definitely. I think about. But we will see you Thursday, guys.
Goodbye.